welcome to Rauta channel. Today I'm gonna have a talk with one of the bands that got me totally off the radar, totally blew my mind back in 1995, 1996 when I heard the single Cold from a local metal radio show. Then soon afterward I had Slaughter of the Soul and I was like, oh shit, I'm gonna just shit my pants. This album is so great. It's still one of my personal 10 out of 10 albums of all time. You've probably seen my classic review already, and if you haven't, well, check it out right after this one. That album is still in my heart, very close to Slayer's Rain in Blood. So you know what kind of album we're talking about here. But more than welcome to have the Mr. Drummer here of At the Gates from Sweden. Welcome. How are you, sir?
Thank you very much. I'm doing pretty well, considering we were on the boat from Stockholm yesterday, and lots of Lankero and Lappinkulta and Salmiakki and Jägermeister. But otherwise, yeah, pretty good.
So you are very well acquainted with Finnish booze and all around the world as well.
Very, very well acquainted. Especially Finland. I've been there quite a few times. I did the army service in Stockholm, and we went like a lot of times on the ferry over to Finland. And then later coming here with the bands. I was here, first time I was here, I was filling in for Witchery actually. And then I've been here a few times with At the Gates, a few times with The Haunted. So, and Paradise Lost as well, and Cradle of Filth. So I've been here many times. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this brings actually to my first ideas of questions, which I had in my mind prior to this interview. You've been involved in so many bands, like 500 or so. How can you possibly have all the time? How can you remember all the drum things? What is your secret to have this kind of uber drumming set of mind?
I just enjoy playing in lots of different configurations, you know. I've been lucky to meet the right people at the right time and be given the opportunity. I mean, there's so many good drummers out there now. It's ridiculous.
Lots of competition?
No, well, I don't really consider it competition anymore because I'm just too old to be competing anyway. But, it's just a real privilege to have been able to play with bands like Paradise Lost and I would say Cradle of Filth as well. That was a real sort of lift in my career, if you want to call it that. I don't really consider drumming a career. It's just like a musical journey, and it's interesting to make stops at these places. Like Paradise Lost was one of my favorite bands when I was a young man in Sweden, and then actually playing with them was a bit of a dream almost.
Have you ever looked back in the way that, oh man, I shouldn't have left that band, or I shouldn't have gone to that band? I mean, of course, I know some bits of your career prior to, after At the Gates and whatever, but some people might not be aware of that. Is there a band you would like to have been part of, or some band that you should not have joined in the first place?
I mean, everything has its time and place, like when I'm no longer working with a band, it's because it just wasn't possible timing wise anymore. I mean, when I left Cradle, there was like business arguments or whatever behind it, but with Paradise Lost, there was just a collision of schedules. It wasn't possible for At the Gates to be as active as we were and me still be in Paradise Lost. It just wasn't fair on them, and since I was in At the Gates from the beginning of the band, of course At the Gates gets my priority.
You started already as 1990, am I correct?
Yeah,
and you're also considered one of the so-called Gothenburg death metal style or melodic death metal style pioneers. How does that title feel to you right now? I mean, almost 30 years later. How is that like?
I'm not really sure. I mean, it's cool that because I often think back when for example, when we came off stage in New York on the last American tour now with Behemoth, it was such a euphoric feeling, people singing along to the songs, and then I was just like, it's amazing that we just come from that little rehearsal room in Gothenburg and we play on this stage, you know. I never take these things for granted, and it's funny when you sit down with a beer after the gig and you sort of take a moment to reflect on how that journey has gone. So that's something that sits very strongly with me. As far as it goes with titles and stuff, it's kind of more for other people, I guess, to have like some sort of label on it. We just do what we like, you know, and don't consider that we have any kind of. I know people look to certain albums that we have done as we have some sort of a heritage, and since we were one of the first bands to play that kind of style from Gothenburg, we sort of carry some sort of title surrounding that, but like it's not something that we, you know, think about that much.
With Gardens of Grief, you played a little bit different style, more of a kind of a traditional death metal style, but you soon afterwards kind of paved the road for your own style and started adding melodies and all that stuff. And The Slaughter of the Soul, which was supposed to be your swan song, but luckily you came back. This is a weird story, by the way. I mean, you changed the world when people, you know, how they reacted and how they perceived, you know, melodic death metal. One might ask, and I need a beer for this, what is your key to this melodic success? Beer time?
What's the key to it? I mean, if you look at the first few, like the Red and Skies Hours with Fear I Kiss the Burning Darkness, they're so very intricate songs, so like lots of different parts to the songs, weird time signatures and beats that I couldn't really play. We were like really trying to push ourselves as a band. And then the main songwriter at the time for these strange ideas, if I call it that, was Alf, our previous guitar player. And when he left and Martin joined, Anders and Jonas stepped in as more main songwriters. And we had sort of since a while at that point discussed about making the sound a bit more straightforward, easier to perform live, and more memorable, and so sort of scaling the songs back a little bit in complexity. And with that came the sound that you started hearing developing on Terminal Spirit Disease.
Which is a great album, by the way.
And then during the period after the release of Terminal Spirit Disease, we tried to set out on our first headlining tour. And it was a complete disaster. We got so, can I swear?
Of course. The profanity is totally within our borders.
We got so royally fucked on this tour that almost financially broken. And we came back and we played a couple of shows to sort of repay the debts. And then we had so much anger in us. And that's what sort of fueled the aggression in the writing of the songs on Slaughter of the Soul. And we sort of really wanted to take the music, make it as simple as possible, but as hard hitting as possible, and simple melodies that are catchier and simpler arrangements in the songs and stuff. So I don't know. Does that answer your question? I can't even remember the question now.
Well, that's how it goes when we don't have detailed list. Well, that's kind of what can be sensed as a listener, that you started growing towards more aggression. In my opinion, correct if I'm wrong or if you see it different, but I think you also had kind of a more trash vibes when with Slaughter of Souls. It's not so much about melodic death metal, but it's also kind of a trashy, but then again also so hateful, and Tumpa's vocals are really kind of a unique breed of kind of a almost black metal-ish kind of a shriekiness. So you're kind of like a hybrid release, which just is perfection. I mean, was it that when you decided, we have to quit, we cannot beat this album, or what happened?
No, so what happened, when Slaughter of the Soul came out, we had then signed to Earache, and Earache said, well, we want you to go on tour, and we hadn't really been on tour before. So then first we did a tour with Unleashed, like 4 weeks in Europe. Then we did 5 weeks, I think, with Morbid Angel and Dissection in America, followed by a European tour with Napalm Death, followed by an American tour with Napalm Death. So we were pretty much about 8 months on tour, and we were just not ready for that. You know, like as people or as a band, it just sort of it kind of fucked us a bit. And instead, I guess the mature way of dealing with it would have been, right, let's have half a year off, or maybe even a year. But instead, Anders said, I'm leaving the band. And the rest of us were just like, what are we going to do? Because we weren't still making a living out of the band. So it was a sort of a difficult decision to call it quits then. But me and Jonas started The Haunted the next day after At the Gates split up. I was in the rehearsal room with Jensen writing new music for The Haunted. So we sort of put it aside, and then years later on, when I was in Cradle, The Haunted came along on tour, and we had been talking a little bit, so joking via text message, hey, let's do some shows maybe without the Gates. And then finally, when I wasn't in Cradle anymore, the schedule sort of freed up and everyone was ready, and so then in 2008 we came back again. Well,
now this I must have tell you the camera once again. Mm-hmm. So I was at one of those kind of reunion tours, you know, seeing the band play live, and I was just like, shit, kind of a dream come true, you know. Mm-hmm. Songs of Slaughter Soul played live, and suddenly like, boom, this is my childhood dream. But you moved so much, you know, on after that. You've released a couple of new albums, mm-hmm. At War with Reality, and now with From the Night Itself, and also Haunted is again active.
Yeah.
How can you? There's like 2 or more members involved with both bands. How can you have it going on?
Well, sort of At the Gates is. We haven't sort of officially said that, but At the Gates is the more active band. Some of the members in The Haunted have other things on the side, like normal jobs, and Ola's got his guitar company, Solar Guitars. Mm-hmm. And so it's just fallen naturally that we're doing more stuff with At the Gates, and everyone's really dedicated now to pushing the band as far as we can, both musically, but also trying to like travel to places in the world that we haven't been before, go out and play with bands like Behemoth, for example, and that was a deliberate decision to come out as a support band to play to people that haven't necessarily heard At the Gates before.
You're also on a bigger label right now. How has Injury Media helped you to do what At the Gates does?
They're just very supportive of our ideas, you know, like we have ideas for videos and things, and they're just, you know, go ahead, here's the budget you need to do it. They're just very supportive.
But you also had a lineup change, and one of the major ones being the Björler brothers keeping divided. Can you shed any light into this? I'm not gonna ask personal questions, but I mean, what was going on and how that did affect the band? Yeah,
so we did like quite a bit of touring on At War with Reality, and Anders again, he likes metal. He doesn't like traveling very much. He doesn't like playing live very much. So touring became very difficult for him. And we said, okay, we'll take like a short break and see how you feel and stuff. And during the short break, he sort of decided, look, it's probably better you take someone else, because like he doesn't want to tour. And doesn't really want to play metal at the moment either. So we sort of talked about it in the band, and Jonas said, me and Tompa have actually already started writing songs for the new album. And then we just carried on writing. Jonas and Tompa writing and sending me demos for the drums, doing demos back and forwards. And then when we were ready to go in the studio, we said, all right, we got to find another guitar player. And at that point, me and Tompa already had the Lurking Fear going, where Jonas Stålhammar is the guitar player. And we asked him if he'd be interested, because we'd known him since like early 90s with tape trading, and we played shows with his old bands back then. So it was sure, you know, like he fits perfectly personality-wise. If he can nail the stuff musically, then, you know, he's a perfect match. And we did one rehearsal, and then sat and took some coffee and just at Jonas' house, and then it's like, yeah, he's in.
So it's kind of like old scene meeting back in.
Yeah, completely. I mean, you know, like he's been there since the beginning of the band, and although he's been working with other bands, it's, you know, he's from the same background as us, so it's a natural progression. And now everyone wants to tour, everyone wants to play shows, everyone wants to make new music, so
kind of a perfect fit.
Yeah, totally.
So at the Gates 2019, finally we're back to this day. You already released a 7-inch EP lately, but also a digital-only EP. What's the story of all this?
We had some guest musicians in when we did To Drink from the Night Itself, and we figured it'd be a nice release to have those, because they normally came in that big box set, and we figured it'd be nice for people that didn't buy the box sets to be able to access these songs, and now they're part of the live set as well. So it's just perhaps a little bit of record company politics behind, but also it's a cool, because we're all record collectors in the band, and we like sort of limited editions of EPs and stuff with odd songs with guest.
Smell of vinyl.
Yeah, and guest musicians that wouldn't normally be acquainted with the band. It's you know, as a collector and a music fan, it's a cool release, I think.
Well, I must say, music-wise, it is a cool release as they come. Too bad you won't have it, at least at the moment, for CD or vinyl. Now, let's head for the end of the thing. And this is... What is this ink on this guy's hands? Look at these big forearms. They're nicely inked. Can you share a little bit light about these tattoos, these wonderful tattoos you have here?
Right,
these are clearly older. As we can see, these are probably newer. What can you tell us about the tattoos you're so proud of?
Right.
Now, flex a muscle, please.
No flexing. But this tattoo was made by our old guitar player, Alf, in his kitchen. And you can probably see on Tompa and on our old guitarist, Anders, they all have the same style tattoo. And it's from Alf, the old guitarist. He did it in his kitchen. And I guess it's, I don't know, there's like trolls and
look at these titties.
And,
wonderful.
And yeah, it's a troll family. There's a wizard. There's some, there's like some spine or whatever. I didn't really have any plan. It just grew from various sessions.
Yeah, obviously.
The same with this. I mean, there's a little bit more sort of background to this. It's some sort of machinery, you know, like the mechanics of a train on the wheel. That pull the wheel is so to symbolize the drumming. And
smart.
I wear the heart on my sleeve, which I do, and like a crocodile jaw that eats everything in the end, and like whatever. It's
infant baby.
Yeah, again, I guess it's a little bit the story of my life, but you know, it's whatever.
That's a really cool story. And the final question is, you seem to be quite good in shape. How do you practice outside the drummer set? What is your story of keeping your health cool?
I love to eat, and that's my biggest downfall. I eat a lot and different things, probably bad things as well. But to sort of curb the eating, I go running quite a lot when I'm at home, like every other day I'll go running. I try to keep it up on tour, but it's difficult when you have weather like this. It's not so much the cold, but the snow, it'd just be
Too much of that.
Yeah, it wouldn't be safe. And then so mainly running and drumming, really. I do some cycling as well at home, but otherwise that's it.
What would be your tip for the bands that are now young, how to keep in shape for the years to come, the tours to come, and whatever?
I think the main thing that destroys band is when they try to make a career out of it. And that becomes more the focus than having a good time and writing good music and just enjoying playing together. There's so many, I get questions to my drum Facebook page a lot about how to set up to become a professional drummer. And I think that's the wrong approach. You should always concentrate on having a good time and coming up with good parts and being part of fun projects and focus on that instead of, or immediately, who can we get to sponsor me, and
I do.
Yeah.
With these wise words, be you the drummer, the guitarist, the vocalist, I don't know, writing poets, keep the art in your mind. Keep the importance of having fun in your life. Don't do too much drugs, do running, do training or whatever. And most importantly, keep having good time. Yeah. Thank you here. Thank you
very much. Thank you very much.
And have a good time in Finland.
Yeah.
Remember to throw some snowballs on you, will ya?
I will try. Thank you.
Cheers. Rauta says out. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you as well.
Did it go the way you planned? We got this.
Like I said, I never have plans. It was, I could do this like 2 hours, and because it's